All right, here we go. Three, two, one.
How off did that sound to you?
I wasn't paying attention. Is it just me, or do you hold your breath while you do that too?
I actually I do. That's funny.
Uh, okay. Are you ready?
I am ready.
Okay. Welcome back to the Turn on the Music podcast. This is episode 6. My name is Kyle. We've got CJ here tonight. CJ, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well. How about yourself, sir?
I'm doing okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's been a week already.
It,
We're only like halfway through.
well, we're more than halfway through. We got
Yeah, a
one
little
more
more.
day left. So
Yeah, but otherwise good.
yeah, it's been a week. It's
Yeah,
been
yeah, yeah.
several weeks. Um, so
I've just been fighting my allergies all week, which is why I sound the way I sound.
gotcha.
Probably better than normal.
Yes. Yeah, and I wasn't feeling well last night, which is a normal night to record, so that put us off for this week. So, um, not that it matters, but
No,
yeah. So,
doesn't matter.
so we are recording this on May 4th.
Right.
Yes, and I brought up a musician last week that I thought we could play a little bit of.
Well, we haven't played anything in our podcast in a few
No, we
episodes.
haven't.
It's the last season.
So, I brought up Derek Paravicini, who is a blind autistic pianist,
Okay.
and he does an arrangement of Star Wars that I thought we could kind of play because we're recording this on May 4th. It's not
Sure.
coming out on May 4th, but it'd be fun to listen to. So let's
Let's do it.
jump on over to Mr. Derek Paravicini. So that was Derek
Amazing harmonies, Derek.
Paravicini.
Honestly,
Yeah.
so clever. Well done.
So, just an amazing musician.
So I remind he's he has no formal training. Or
So he has formal training.
Okay.
But I mean, obviously can't read music. But he has he's had a teacher since he was, I think, 8 or so. But a specialized teacher that had to learn how to teach him because he's
Right.
blind, and
Right.
he's it's as a pianist, if you watch like his fingering, it's all wrong. I use the bunny ears for that because um he just does it the way it feels right to him, and it's just maybe it's the motor skills too, that like when you do a scale, it's usually you do 1 2 3 under. He does scales 1 2 1 2 1 2 all the way up because
Right.
he can do it faster. But
So what I was interested in, and I, like we know Ray Charles, we know Stevie Wonder, where they play and they bob and they swerve
Hmm.
to the music and whatever. What I thought was interesting was the way when he was playing certain parts, he turned his ears to the piano.
Hmm.
I'm curious if that's just like getting into the music and the groove, or was it his way of listening to what he's doing at that moment?
It could also be his autism because the moving like that is
Okay,
a symptom of
that's
autism.
true, but I feel like it was more musical than that.
Could have been.
Like even there was even the part when he brought his hand, like those that are going to see this in visual can. I'm sure you're going to put the link
Yeah,
for the.
I'll definitely put the link in the show notes.
There's a
So.
part where he comes down to the middle of the piano and his hands are almost on top of each other, and
Hmm.
he is focused in such a way that he knows he's playing that middle. But as soon as his hands
Hmm.
go out to the high and the low,
Yep.
that's when he starts to move his ears again. And I'm
Yep.
curious if there's a reason for it. I
Yeah.
mean, it's still impressive. Like it
Yeah. Yeah.
doesn't change anything, but
Yeah.
yeah.
So, what are you listening to this week? Anything different?
Um, no, I was playing Victor Wooten. I've been listening
Mhm.
to the audiobook to kind of get it in my head. I'm actually in the second book now on the audiobook,
Okay.
and I'm getting caught back up to where I was. I kind of started re-listening to it again, and like I said, I've been kind of sharing music at work, so we've been listening to show tunes,
Hmm.
a little Tori Amos. We did some '80s rock, just kind of stuff that kind of blends to the day.
Hmm.
Something maybe a little bit upbeat because we got to get moving. Stuff that helps us kind of like focus, have a little fun.
Yeah.
Um, Again, like I said, that's shared, so it's like I have one earbud in.
Hmm.
I typically I don't get a lot of phone calls, so or when we do, it's like you'll get a bunch of phone calls and then it'll be dead for the day. Everything's through email, so we have the opportunity to kind of do that. I mean, we're aware of what's going on, but
Right. Right.
um, I don't want to disturb other people. Where I won't put a speaker on my desk and listen to. I can't do that.
Hmm.
So it's just same stuff. How about yourself?
For the most part, the same stuff. I did a little Dave Weckl this week and a little bit of Return to Forever.
Oh,
Like,
nice.
um, yeah, that's about it.
And I know this is coming out like a week after, but to acknowledge the passing of Gordon Lightfoot.
Yes.
Which it's funny because we were both talking about like how much do we really know? We actually know a lot more of his music than we
Yeah.
realize.
Yeah.
So
In fact, the one song that I've been thinking about covering is one of his songs.
yeah.
So.
And so when this comes out, the Sunday before we went live, we've put some focus on his music to kind of play in memory. And like I said, there's a lot of songs that he has done that we will know.
Mhm.
And it's funny because he does a version of the now I can't remember that eerie song that Punch Brothers do, the wreck, the shipwreck.
That's what I was talking about.
Oh,
He
with
wrote that.
that song? Okay.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
wrote that.
Oh, he wrote it.
He
I
wrote it.
wasn't. I know he's a writer. I didn't
Hmm.
realize he wrote that particular song.
He
Okay.
wrote that. Yep.
Okay. That answers the question. So, yeah, if you had the pleasure of listening in, thank you, because we're looking forward to, we look forward to sharing that and
Yep.
and putting his music out there. So,
Hmm.
and then, yeah, I don't have anything else to share on that either. There's like nothing else going. It's just been busy at work, so I just
Yeah,
haven't had the opportunity to really enjoy as much as I like.
I hear you.
Waiting for the weather to get warmer so I can sit outside, put a speaker out,
Hmm.
put a speaker out, maybe light a fire and just
Hmm.
sit and listen to some music.
Yeah, I've got chairs I'm wanting to put together so I can do the same because I don't
Yeah.
really have anything outside yet. But
Or even just go outside and read. Just
yeah,
relax.
and I really that's what I want to do is just kind of sit out there with the dogs, but I don't really have a place to sit yet. So,
And I
um,
do want to share. We were talking about Tom Brown because of one of the
mhm.
chapters. So I'm sharing through the video Tom Brown Grandfather, which is
Yep.
a book that he wrote. And it's a Native American's lifelong search for truth and harmony with nature. And my wife happened to find it at Barnes and Nobles, and I said, just pick it up. I don't care, just pick it up. Like
Yep.
it just. So I'm once I'm done with the Spirit of Music, the second Victor Wooten book, I think I'm going to jump into this.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like it's not a large book.
No.
It's only a couple hundred pages.
Yeah.
So I have a feeling I can probably enjoy it, knock it out, like for all I know,
Tell
becomes
me,
another.
Tell me when you start it, and I'll start at mine too, because I've got a copy of it back there in the
Oh,
closet.
Grandfather.
Yeah.
Okay, let me get through the music lesson audiobook just so I get it in my head because I haven't really read that book, so when I do that, I'll let you know.
Cool.
Cool. So, do we jump into it?
As soon as I get my Kindle to start working. Sure.
Technology.
There we go.
There's always a problem with technology.
Yeah, I put a USB switch on so I didn't have to use two different keyboards, and that failed instantly. That was awesome. So we're on measure 6, dynamics, and you and I were both wrong. So
yes,
we thought Sam came back this week. He did not, and I thought Sam did the whole metronome vacuum thing, and it was Michael. So we're not doing too good.
Sam coming back. Sam hasn't entered in yet.
Yeah, but you said he was coming back this week.
No, he's coming in this week.
Yes, he does not.
He doesn't come in. No, right. We haven't been introduced to him yet.
No, because I think he's next week.
Yeah, he comes in measure 7, the next chapter.
Yeah.
So I was completely wrong.
I was too. So
that's okay. Listen, hey, it's all about learning, right?
Yep.
Or attempting to learn.
That's right. So measure 6 starts out. Most people play louder to get someone's attention, but getting quieter can stop a bowl from charging.
Did you read that measure 6 is dynamics?
I thought so.
Oh, well,
maybe I didn't.
I'm repeating it if you did.
Okay.
So
I probably didn't. I did. I did introduce myself. I do remember that.
You did introduce yourself. That's fine.
All right.
So measure 6 is dynamics, which I think that quote now makes a little bit more sense. So it's funny. This is another chapter. This is a long chapter. This is another chapter that I was going into it. I'm like, what am I going to pull out of this?
Mm-hmm.
Because of reading the book before, there's not. But then you kind of read through it and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm taking that out of it. So, but I'm going to let you begin because you have that wonderful Kindle.
So the beginning of the chapter kind of kicks off and picks up where we left off with the rocks. And we kind of talked about it a little bit last week where they go inside and Michael's looking for a specific CD that Victor Wooten has. But he makes him find it with his eyes closed. And Victor tries to find a whole bunch of CDs and Michael had his eyes closed as well. And every time Victor chose one, he'd say, nope, wrong one. And sure enough, he was right each time. But he was looking for Curtis Mayfield's Superfly. And for those that don't know, Victor Wooten actually opened up for Curtis Mayfield when he was 4. So, yeah.
He's almost 60 years old.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I know.
Meaning Victor Wooten is almost 60.
Yeah.
Because he was born in, I think, 1964, 65.
That sounds right. And he was born on September 11th.
Right. I remember us talking. Yes, we were talking about that. I do have a line that comes in on page 118. I know your pages are a little off.
Yeah, that's okay. Go for it.
So it gets down to after he was trying to get the CD, like The Rock, but Michael, when he was getting to start it, Michael gives him more instructions. He goes, "This time you should not feel for your emotion. You should feel for his."
Mm.
And for me, the reason why that stood out is because throughout the book, he talks about how when you put music out there, it's out there, and it puts a little bit of you out there,
mm-hmm.
right? And that bit of you is now out there at all times. So every time that we technically performed or we recorded music or whatever, a piece of us is now out there, and
right.
And whether it was recorded or not, it's still out there. It's in the
mm-hmm.
vibrations are out there.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of resonated with me because it makes a lot of sense now. As you read about it, you think about it, like if you're singing if you're doing this album, and I would think nowadays you may question, but in most cases back in the day when they were recording an album, there was a lot of emotion going into those albums.
Oh yeah,
and they got to be trapped in there somehow. Like
mm-hmm.
that energy, that vibration's got to be trapped in there. So that line stood out to me.
Yeah, and a few pages later, he says, "Emotion is stored inside music on every CD. And even if the CD is sitting on the shelf, it can be felt. Learning to discern the emotions of each artist is the trick.
Right.
So then he goes on, leaving further, he says, have you ever noticed when you hear a song such as Amazing Grace, it makes you feel different? You can tell there is something special dwelling within that song. Well, there are tons of emotions stored in there, and if you knew the origin behind the particular song, it would make complete sense to you.
Right. And it's funny because I think Amazing Grace as a song, now, whether you're religious or not, it's an impactful song
Mm-hmm.
just because of the way it's written.
Yep.
Yeah. Um, and then Victor actually says states that he's known this song to be special, and he says every time I hear it, I feel quieter and calmer. It's similar
Mm-hmm.
to the feeling I get every time I walk into the woods or walk
Yep.
in the woods.
Yep.
And it's funny. I don't know if I mentioned this last time, but the other day I went outside. It was nice out. It was the first time I kind of like walked out barefoot in a while because it's been chilly and the ground is not that I don't walk out barefoot in cold weather. I'm kind of
Mm-hmm.
an idiot when it comes to that. But
Well, yeah, we know that.
but I went and I took a moment and I stepped on grass and dirt to like ground myself to take
Mm.
that moment, and it was such a great feeling to do that. And it's I don't have woods by me, but I can only imagine being able to
Mm.
go into the woods and just kind of hear nature's music around you.
Right, right. And the Amazing Grace is a special song for Victor, and one of his big hits, or what propelled him to where he was his arrangement of Amazing Grace. And if you've never heard it, it's something you definitely want to check out. He does it on the Live at the Quick album for Bella Fleck and the Live Art album by Bella Fleck. Both versions are fantastic.
It's beautiful,
Yeah.
especially you hear it on a bass the way he plays it.
Yes. And it comes back in the second book. I don't know if you've gotten to that part.
I don't think so.
Okay. So there's a part in the book where Victor becomes injured, and
Okay.
Michael plays Amazing Grace for him to heal him because it says it's your song. Like this is the one that resonates most with you.
Right. I'm not at that point yet because Michael has not been reintroduced yet. So I look forward to getting to that part. Going forward, he gives a little bit of history of the song, but then he goes. And
What
then,
he does not talk about the history of that song. There's actually two versions of that song. Most people don't know it. There's a northern version and a southern version. The
well, he
words are
gives
the same.
I mean, I'm sorry. He doesn't give a history. He talks about the story that he heard. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead and say what you're saying.
So there's actually two different versions. There's a northern version and a southern version. We know the southern version.
Okay.
But there's actually a northern version, and the melody is actually a lot prettier, I think. But
Interesting.
yeah.
Maybe it's something we should bring up on the live show.
Yeah.
And play it. Huh. I didn't know. That's very cool. Look, I just learned something. You educated me.
I'm full of useless knowledge.
Or you educated me.
That's right.
You have taught me nothing.
That's right.
Moving forward, Michael says, I'm talking about vibrations and how strongly they can be felt. And then he says, most people would say that the man wrote the song, and I thought this was very interesting, when actually the situation he was in created it. He just happened to be aware enough to pick up on it.
Yep.
So going to the idea that Michael believes that, or states that, we're not creating a song, we're not writing it. It's something that's already there, and it's something that's prompting us. So our brain is not creating things. It's just finding things that are already there.
Right.
And it's so true because a lot of songs are situational.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there are a lot of songs that are out there that are just plain crap.
Right.
Is the way to say it.
Yeah. But like our national anthem was written that way. You know, it was Francis Scott Key was watching the rockets in the air, and he wrote the Star Spangled Banner. Like that's how that was written.
Right. And I sang that once.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I got slapped in the butt by the coach in the football team.
Yeah, well,
It was the oddest thing ever. It was at CW Post too.
You tell me about
I
it.
don't remember. I don't know if you remember
You
that.
told me about it. I don't know about it. I
Yeah, like
didn't see
I
it.
started the
Yeah.
pep band with
Yep.
the conductor there, and
Hmm.
they needed someone to sing. They're like, "Will you sing it?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'll go sing it." So I went out and sang it. Not really, from when we were going to college, like you don't always have to mic somebody.
Hmm.
So they mic'd me, and this was at the time my ex girlfriend. She wasn't in the stadium, but she was outside the stadium. She goes, "We heard you," because you were so mic'd, and because of how strong your voice was, we heard you like out of the campus. Like that's how And then I walked off, and the coach wound up his hand and went, "What, bam to back?" I was like, "I have to go sit down now and play the saxophone. I can't do that."
Oh
But
man.
so, and then Victor says, "So the situation wrote the song." So I don't know if you have anything after that. I have a couple of lines.
122 is my next.
We're on page 122. So where are
Okay.
you on?
A vibration is nothing until it has something to bounce off of. This again is yin yang. In order to have something, you must first have something else. The song already existed. He was the something else that allowed it to exist then and there.
Being the conduit.
Yes.
It's and this whole and that's the whole crazy part about reading this book about how we're just conduits for music.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why when you think about musicians, you get this mindset that they're a certain way because of what media has done. And media presents themselves as saying, this is a musician.
Mm-hmm.
But then you go out there and you meet all these other people that are musicians, and you look at them and like, yeah, it totally makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who you are.
Right.
If you are connected to it in such a way, you can be a conduit.
Right.
Just like we could be a conductor of electricity. We could be a conduit of music.
Yep. Yep.
I think it's interesting because Victor talks about how it's hard for him to understand that concept of vibrations.
Hang on one second.
Yep.
I hit my keyboard accidentally and stopped the recording on my Mac. So
What do you want to do?
I'm going to start recording again. I'm just going to do another 3, 2, 1.
Okay. Yeah, let's do it. Yeah.
Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Breathe. Okay. That's good.
So what I mentioned was that Victor states how, and I think it's interesting how he has a trouble grabbing the concept of this whole vibration thing.
Mm-hmm.
Which I love the fact that he puts it in there.
Yeah.
Like it's not like, oh yeah, I totally get it. No, he's like, I still can't grab the concept, and to the point where it makes him frustrated.
Yeah.
Which I love that is in there too.
Mm-hmm.
And when you hear him do the audiobook, like he shows, like he's very good at like acting out his own lines, of course. But I love that it's there, and it's not just coming like, oh yeah, it was, I totally got that. It was no. This sucked, and I couldn't figure it out.
Right.
No. But Michael does say, have you ever had an idea you didn't act on, only to find out later that someone else did? In other words, someone stole your idea. All the time.
Mm-hmm.
All the time.
Yep.
And Michael continues to say, and this is why this is so, and I think this was so important to read. Your idea is never yours alone. It's in the air for anyone to pick up. Actually, when you think about an idea, it grows stronger, making it easier for others to feel it too. Ideas create vibrations, and these vibrations can be felt in music. Stating Amazing Grace is a perfect example.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing.
Yep. Yep. And then a little bit further on, he says, talking more about vibrations. It is more like, it is much, let's try that again. It is much like looking at a photograph of someone who is special to you. The age of the photograph does not matter. The person's vibrations can still be felt. Sometimes the older the picture, the stronger the vibrations.
That's so powerful.
Mm.
Like just that idea. And how many times have you seen an old picture and you're just kind of like, that's intense.
Mm,
You know, because if you think, and depending upon how old you go, I mean, even back in the day when photography was so new,
mm.
right? And they were doing these, like the ones where you know that the person has actually died in.
I was just going to ask you a question. Do you see the difference in pictures after people have died?
Okay, so I was talking about, so you're talking about like, okay, that's interesting. I never thought of it. I was talking about the actual photographs back in the day that when
Hmm.
someone passed, they would prop them and set them up, and they would take a picture with the family,
Right.
so they wouldn't they were actually dead in the picture. But
Mm.
you're actually asking if you have a photograph and you look at a photograph after someone's passed away, like a family member
Yep.
or whoever, someone of adult or whoever.
Yep.
Yeah.
It feels different to me looking at them after they've passed.
Oh yeah.
And I don't know
I
why or how or
absolutely
what's different, but it's just different. It's weird.
because my thought I'm not saying this is the true thing. My thought is when you're looking at a picture at this moment in time and that person is still alive, and especially nowadays, you can reach out to them and be like, "Hey, do you remember the time we
Mm.
went and did this?" And you're, "Oh yeah, I got a picture of it, man. You got to see this picture." And I think now, if that person's gone, you're looking at the picture and you now that the memory is trapped in time,
Right.
and whoever was a part of that memory is trapped in that one moment.
Right.
So if it's just that individual person and you're the one who took the photograph because it was of a grandparent or a family or a friend or whatever, you're the only one who knows at that moment.
Yeah.
That's just my thought. It's that it's that moment. It's like that whole those tribes that are scared of photography because they feel it's going to take your soul.
Yep. And
Like
the
it's that whole
Amish.
like, I'm sorry,
And the Amish.
and the Amish, right?
Yep.
That whole concept. I think it goes down to. I feel it has to do with that. Is that moment's just trapped in that picture,
Hmm.
which is a beautiful thing. Don't get me wrong. It's just
Yeah.
you don't have that person to share it with anymore.
Right.
You can take that picture, and I can go to you. Hey, Kyle, you got to check out this picture. I took this of my grandfather, and we were playing music, and I mean, this just the whole moment. But I'm not talking about it. We did this like 3 years ago. I'm talking about the fact that he's passed, and this is what we did.
Hmm.
It's a yeah, no, I totally get
Yep.
that. Definitely a different feeling. Um, a little further down, I don't know if you have anything after that, but a little further down, and you can tell me if I skipped you. If you knew how to go inside, how to go within yourself, it would come very it would come very quickly and easily to you. Meaning understanding how sensitive you are. That is why I urge you to pursue meditation and mind exercises. You already have a great deal of sensitivity. All people do. Maybe not enough to do what I just did, but enough to understand what I'm talking about. Now, I read that, underlined it, listened to it on the audiobook, and I started taking 5 minutes a time at work to meditate
Hmm.
at my desk.
Yeah.
Because there are sometimes my anxiety gets so bad,
Hmm.
and we've talked about this, and I have overthinking thoughts, racing thoughts, everything comes together, and I'm like, you know what? I'm not gonna let this dictate my day. I can't.
Right.
So I take 5 minutes, I take my glasses off, I shut my eyes, and I
Hmm.
sit at my desk and I just focus on my breathing. I don't do anything crazy,
Hmm.
but I've been thinking of using the space behind me and setting it up so I can actually come in here and meditate.
Nice.
Yeah, because I used to do it.
Yep.
I mean, in my own way. I'm not saying I was amazing at it, but it
Hmm.
helped me. So I don't know about yourself because I know you do it or you taught it and whatever.
I haven't done it in a long time, and I've got people at work who want me to teach it, and I'm like, I haven't done it. I mean, I could certainly teach it, but I feel weird teaching it because I'm not practicing it.
Well, how about this? What if we create a few YouTube videos
Hmm.
of this?
Sure.
Like I can work with you on it,
Yeah.
you know, or you can do it on your own if you want. But why not? Like even they could be shorts, they could be a couple minutes,
Hmm. Yeah, that's fine.
and like getting back into the practice of things.
Yeah.
Like I'm out of practice. I
Hmm.
remember when I used to do it, how much of an impact it made, and how much it changed. Whether it was 10 minutes, 15 minutes, or 30 minutes, where after I was done, I was like, okay. Like it's almost like looking at, well, not that you know because you're things are unorganized and there's no cable management. But it's like looking at your desk and you have papers everywhere and you have folders everywhere. And that's your brain, that's your thought, that's your anxiety, that's your overthinking. And you
Mm-hmm.
take a moment, you breathe, and you focus on your breathing, and all that stuff gets filed away where it needs to go, and it's now
Mm-hmm.
organized.
Yep.
And that's kind of like what I worked on was reorganizing my brain so things weren't all over the place, and I was able to piece them together
Mm-hmm.
and figure out what was causing the anxiety or whatever the case may be. So
Yeah. That's a
I
good
would be
idea.
interested.
Maybe let's talk about doing like a series of meditations.
I would well, you have or had another podcast
Mm-hmm.
called
Living musically,
Why Don't We Take a Look at That and Revisit?
because we have trouble growing this one. Why are we going to start another one?
Because
We'll just
people
do it
are
here.
listening to this, and we're not trying to grow another one. We're just trying to add to it.
Let's just keep it here.
No, I'm saying like we'll just call it "Turn on the Music," living musically,
Just keep it here.
shorts with meditation
Yeah.
moments.
And we can put them up on YouTube too. So
We could totally do it.
yeah.
I like it. We can even do like, when we go live, we can take 5 minutes and have everybody like breathe with us.
Yeah.
I'd be gonna become hippie gurus. Oh, can you grow your hair? Never mind.
No. Definitely can't grow out the hair. Sorry.
Your beard just gets longer. What's funny is after that, Victor does ask. He goes, "I already have a great deal of sensitivity. Like, can you show me how to make that happen?" And
Mhm.
I feel like Victor as a person probably has always been this sensitive person.
Yeah.
And that's what he struggled with, is the fact that
Mhm.
he was sensitive. And I'm a sensitive person. Like, I'm not, and I know you are, like, we played a lot, but I know we both are.
Mhm.
And that's what affects us a lot. And I when I read this, I'm sitting here going, yeah, no, I totally understand that.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sensitive. Yeah. Oh no, I totally, like, how do I figure this out? Like, how do I make that work? Yeah, I just totally shared that Kyle's a sensitive guy.
What else is new?
Yeah, whatever. I don't know where you go after this.
124.
Okay, go for it, man.
So they're talking about hands, and so the exercise that Michael did was they played a song by Curtis Mayfield, and he had Victor use the speakers to feel it in his hands, and he had him spin around with his eyes closed so he could tell by feel where the music was coming from. Then he turned the volume of the speakers all the way down so he couldn't hear anything, but he could still feel when he faced the speakers. He could feel something out of his in his hands. And Michael says that it was the emotion coming through. Even though it was there was no volume, the emotion was still coming through the speaker. Just the sound volume was turned down. The dynamics were low, but the intensity was still there of the emotion. So he said, "What is the first thing you do when you get injured?" He didn't give me a chance to think. Before you think, you touch it with your hands. It doesn't matter if your injury is or someone else's. You feel the urge to touch it. Why is that? Again, he didn't wait for an answer. It is because of an ancient memory, an instinct you have about your hands. This memory knows that your hands are sensitive and that they have a healing ability. So your hands immediately spring into action as soon as let's say, a bee stings you. It happens before you think. And then he goes on a little bit while later. He says, the hands seem to have a desire of their own. They also react when you are in love. You have a desire to touch the person you are in love with. You also have a desire to touch the one you hate, albeit in a different way. The desire is still there. Children desire to touch everything too. They touch with their feet, noses, or any part of their bodies. They love to touch. Now here is an exercise that will show you how to reach out and touch. And again, we're talking about kids. We talk about how kids are, learn languages faster. They can learn music faster than adults can, because they're more open and more receptive.
Yeah, it's amazing how, but it's true. I know that when I hurt myself, the first thing I'm doing is like go and touch it, figure out
Hmm.
what the hell happened.
Yep.
You know, like I had a lead door hit me in the head, and the first thing I did once was put my hand up, and I'm like, oh, there's my bone. You know, like it's like you're automatically, but it's true. Like the concept is the fact your hands are the most sensitive,
Hmm.
and that's really what it boils down to. And I you know as Kyle explained the little bit of the story is that the music's playing and he has his hands out and he can feel that vibration, and it goes on where he lowers the volume, but he has Victor do like 360s.
Yeah.
And as he does the 360s, he said that there's a huge difference to when he's in front of the speaker versus when he's out. And what that
Hmm.
reminded me of, and I'm sure you remember, is when at my wedding to my
Hmm.
wedding we had it was half deaf people and half my family, and there was a lot of deaf people dancing, and I think they even talk about this in the book a little bit, and it's the idea that we put the speakers on the floor, not that we needed to, but we did it to enhance the vibrations, and everyone danced.
Hmm.
And there was probably more deaf people dancing than hearing people,
Yep.
which I thought was amazing.
Hmm.
And even our little flower girl was like trying to figure out where the vibrations were coming, and she loved it.
Hmm.
And you know, where as she walked, she started going closer to the speaker because she felt the vibration get heavier or hard, or heavier or harder or whatever. And then she put her hand on the speaker, and she had the biggest smile on her face, and she was
Hmm.
so happy. And it's like that whole concept to me, it was always something that was very interesting to me, but to see it in play was just amazing.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
such a cool thing to see when you're not hearing the music, but you're still enjoying the music.
Right.
And that, I mean, that's just, it's like the wind. You can enjoy the wind. You don't have to
Hmm.
see it, you don't have to hear it, you could just feel it. You know, and yeah, that this whole moment was very cool music, cool moment.
Mm.
I don't know if you were going to read what actually happened, but I, you know, were you going to read what
No,
he
you
does?
go for it.
Well, I wasn't really going to read it. I mean, I think we explained it.
Yeah.
Um. Okay, so but he does say one thing. Hold on a second. Did I skip through this? Hold on a second. So he explains, slowly turn towards the speaker, right? And then he tells him to keep playing the music, but he turned on the volume and repeat that same exercise where he kept moving. And after that whole entire process, Victor goes, "Wow, what was that?" Like, he was like, it was like opening up a present on Christmas Day. He goes,
Hmm.
and Michael goes, "Emotion, energy, vibration, life, love, music, call it what you want. The fact that you could feel it, even when you couldn't hear it, is what's important. You now know something is there. Know that
Hmm.
something is there." And then Michael continues to say, when vibrations are coming out faintly from an object, like speakers for instance, our first reaction may be to turn up the volume. Another approach would be to turn up our own volume, our receiving volume. Do you catch yourself doing that?
Hmm. All the time.
I do it all the time. It's really bad. Sometimes, like, it's like when you hear someone's voice, like, you could totally focus in on that voice and tune that one voice to
Hmm.
be a little bit louder at the moment. And sometimes I have to do that at work. People are like talking to me, and it takes me a moment because like I'm in the corner of the office,
Hmm.
and then like if I don't respond right away, they say it louder. But there are times that like I'm listening and I can hear just a faintly, it's Chris back there, like that
Hmm.
type of thing,
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, my
Yeah.
name's
So
Chris
like,
at work.
so
CJ
I
on here.
I actually use that when I'm in like big group situations. So, and Monday was a good example. We had 72 kids come to work, and we did a STEAM project where we helped them build windmills, which was really kind
That's
of cool.
awesome.
Yeah, it was really
I
a
want
lot
to
of
talk
fun.
to you about that after.
Sure. Um, so the idea is that we do a lot of 3D printing. So the idea is that they would test this with this like windmill kit, try and figure out how many how many blades on the windmill there should be. Should they be big? Should they be small? What shape should they be? Should they be sponge? Like, what angle? All this sort of stuff. And the idea is that they're going to go back to their class this week, and then they're going to design their own blades and then give them to us. We're going to print them for them, and then we're going to bring them back, and then they're going to test how much wind energy they can generate with their blades that we've printed for them. So,
That's
um,
very cool.
Yeah, it's really cool.
What's the age? What's the age range?
Third grade.
That's cool for third
Yeah.
graders. What a cool
Yeah.
concept.
So we had all of our, well, a lot of our engineers came in to help them like figure out what the best way to do it and work through the
That's
scientific
cool.
method. It was really fun. But,
That's what needs to be done.
yeah, yeah.
Not to step away from the book for a
Hmm.
moment, but like where I work, I went to a conference, and the first day it was makerspace, so it was all things that were created. I know I sent you some pictures. There's a lot of music stuff. I even bought. It's a little kit. It's a theremin kit. I haven't put it together yet, and I plan on putting it
Hmm.
together soon so I can mess around with it while we're recording and playing live. But the whole day was focused on these kids,
Hmm.
and it was amazing. It was beautiful. And what I loved even more about it is the diversity in the kids.
Hmm.
There was never any question of who the kid was.
Hmm.
There was never, and I bring this up specifically to make a point. There was never any question of their gender. There was never any question of their culture. There wasn't any question of anything,
Hmm.
right? No one walked up to a table and were like, "Oh, I can't talk to this person." It was just, "That's cool. That's awesome." And
Hmm.
it was such a beautiful day to see all that done. And
Yep.
I'm hoping to bring that to where I work. And I'm working on it for next year. I have a demo event I'm trying to work on, and I'm hoping at the end of the year to create this event where we can bring in some kids from the districts and they can share the stuff they did over the school year.
Hmm.
Because I think that that's important,
Yeah, for sure.
and offer the range of, it doesn't matter what it is. I don't care what you're showing. And that's essentially what I saw on that day. Like there was a couch on a remote control cart, and they were giving love seat rides to people.
Hmm.
They had the typical like the robots, the oh my goodness, the show that's on TV.
Oh,
You
the
know,
BattleBots?
BattleBots. They had BattleBots. Thank you.
Hmm.
A few musicians. Some had electronic music. Some showed how the current electricity can be volume for a guitar. Then someone made actually foot pedals on a key. Like it was just all that cool stuff. Then they had 3D printing and all that stuff. So it was just, it's very cool. So to have that come together
Hmm.
and to have the third, that's very cool. I'm
Yeah.
curious to know what happens.
Yeah. So the
Uh,
reason I bring it up is, me in a big crowd like that, I'm a very uncomfortable in that sort of
I get
interacting
it.
with all these people. So what I was doing is, as a meditation, I guess, is focusing on sounds that were far away
Okay.
to, kind of quiet my mind down.
Right.
So, and when you're having 72 kids yelling and screaming and all this, bustling activity, trying to center yourself or center myself really and focus on that one thing, trying to turn up the volume of something that is quiet in the distance was what I was focusing on most of the day.
And that's interesting because that's a great way to kind of help yourself
Hmm.
refocus and get yourself centered at that moment.
Yeah, and that's one of the meditations I do focuses on sound.
That's
That's one
awesome.
one of the ways that's because for me, getting back to the meditation stuff, like
Yeah.
a lot of people focus on breath with the meditation. My brain is so screwed up that when I focus on breath, sometimes it goes, "Hey, guess what? If you don't breathe, you're gonna die." And I go, "Oh, that's not very very peaceful and calming." So I have a touch meditation that I do. I have a sound meditation that I do,
But that's
um,
awesome.
just to
The
kind of.
breathing works for me, but that's
Mhm.
awesome that you have those others.
Yeah.
I'm going to take it to the opposite end with a group of kids. So I think it's funny you brought that up. Um, when I was on a leave replacement, I was in a school district and I had was in bounced between fourth and fifth grade kids. Uh, and there was probably about like 20. It was one of those schools, public schools that actually had like 20 kids in a class, which was pretty impressive. Um, Now, before I did this, I definitely made sure that there wasn't anybody that had, an audio device that required me to wear it. Like, so
Mhm.
no kid in the classroom required audio devices. So this is why I was able to do this. Sometimes the kids were loud, right? So what I did was, because there were times that I had to teach lessons or they had to do some work or whatever, I told them, I said, I'm going to put the music on. I put like classical music or something that was instrumental. And I said, if you're louder than the music, you're too loud.
Mhm.
If you cannot hear the music, you're too loud. So what would happen is I'd put the music on at a decent, it wasn't a crazy loud level, but a decent level, and then it'd be too loud. So I'd lower the music. and they would lower their voices, but then
Mm-hmm.
they'd get too loud again. So I'd lower it got to the point where the music was like just audible, and it was silence in the room.
Mm-hmm.
And I used that dynamic to help them. Like, I didn't yell at them. I didn't tell them they were wrong. I didn't do any of that stuff. I just used the dynamic of music to bring the volume of the class chatter down.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they realized it, that they can listen to the music and do their work, it was fine.
Yep.
You know? And so it's very interesting how you use your meditation technique to help you through that moment. Because 72 kids, whether they're jumping in joy, they're jumping for joy because of what they're doing, it's still a loud noise.
Yep. Yep.
It's a lot to take in.
Mm-hmm.
That's very cool. So that we talked about, and then he talks about Curtis Mayfield a little bit more down towards the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
He says, this is why I like using Curtis Mayfield for this exercise, this whole vibration thing. If you notice, he plays quietly but with a lot of intensity. And he states that there are not many artists who can do that. Most artists think the louder they play, the more emotion there is. And that's very true, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's a made-up statement at all. I think that's a very true statement. And Michael states that it's actually the other way around. If you have enough emotion in it, I'm paraphrasing, if you have enough emotion in it, you can use less intensity and still get people to listen. And I think at that point, this is the first time that Victor says, okay, I totally get you now. Like, I get it.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting he had to do the practice of using his hands for the vibrations to understand what he was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to let you continue.
So I don't have much for a while, but they go through this exercise of turning on a metronome and putting on like background noise and using that as a way similar to what I was talking about, where you try to focus on, one sound and try to turn the volume of that up while you turn the volume of everything else down and trying to focus on that one thing. So they did that. Victor tried to play it along with the metronome, and then they kind of shifted the notes around, the beat around, and then
Did he turn the beat around?
yes,
Did he turn it upside down?
he did. He did
Yeah.
several times. And at one point, Victor says, "In order to stay in time, I had to force myself to base my solo on the groove, not notes or techniques." So
Right. And at the end of this, Michael praises him for doing such a great job with it because he was able to adjust his hearing dynamics quickly enough while soloing and getting himself, so in tune with the beat that he was always on it, even if it was turned off.
Yep.
Which he does a lot in his playing.
Mm-hmm.
Like Live in America, there's one track where there's a few moments where he's like, I don't have to send an email. I don't have to, like they just all come together.
Yep.
I don't have much after that because he talks about getting a gig.
Yep.
And how he wants to hear Michael playing, and he gets the gig with Michael.
Mm-hmm.
So he starts to perform with Michael.
Yep.
I did mark something here because we've been bringing it up. So Michael leaves the house, and he states, "I battled with the anxiety I was feeling."
Mm.
So for most of this, we knew he had anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't, and I bring this up because I think it's of importance. Because a lot of this book, I think, was written out of his anxiety.
Mm.
And what he was processing and how he was trying to figure out what. This is just my interpretation of the book. I'm not saying that this is the true case of it. But I get the impression that when he wrote this book, he was going through this journey. He was trying to really figure it out, and he was dealing with anxiety. And I love the fact that he states, I battled with anxiety, and he goes, he was both excited and nervous about playing a gig alongside Michael, which I thought was very interesting. And do you get nervous when you play gigs? I know you talk about that you're not nervous when you're on stage and you're okay when you play an instrument and you could be in a group, whatever. But is there a nerve going onto the stage?
I don't know that it's nerves but it's definitely anxiety, but it's more I want to get going, I want to start. I want to go now. Like
okay, that's fair.
And one of the things that I struggled with as a church musician play multiple services in a day. I play like a 9 o'clock service, be over at 10. My next service is like 11:30. Just the sitting there and waiting to let's go. Like
Okay.
I'm in the zone. I want to go. Like
So it's more of an
trying to
anxiousness of starting
yeah
versus the
yeah
anxiousness of actually playing.
yeah.
Okay. I think oh that makes sense. I still get a nervousness in performing. And I'm trying to learn how to get past that. It's more of a I just want to do good. And
Hmm.
not it's more of a I want that moment that the people that are listening to me perform enjoy themselves.
Hmm.
So okay, forget about it being good, just that it's enjoyable.
Yeah.
Because as we know, there could be a mistake here or there, and it can still be good.
Hmm.
Right?
Yep.
It's just I'm going out there. I'm going to entertain. I'm going to make these people feel good for an hour or whatever.
Hmm.
That's where my anxiousness lies.
Right.
I'm I always work on trying to get past that, so I don't even have that out in front of me.
Yeah.
Because I think then what happens is you focus too hard on what you're doing,
Right.
and that mistake will happen.
Yeah. My
You
my
know,
high school director was big on this, and my college professor I think said it best. He said if you're thinking about being nervous, you're thinking about the wrong thing.
you mentioned that before in the podcast, and I totally agree with you.
Yeah, and or if you're thinking about making the people enjoy what you're doing, you're thinking about the wrong thing.
Right,
You know.
right. No, that's good. That's a good point. I'd say a very valid point.
So,
Um, so they move forward. They talk about the gig. They get to the gig.
hmm.
He's in. These are people that that Victor has played with in the past, and
Yep.
they're just catching up. And there's a moment where,
Yep. The moment.
huh?
The moment.
The moment. There's a moment where Victor takes out his bass to start. I'm talking about before the band plays. Is that
Yes.
what you're thinking? Okay.
Yep.
Where Victor takes out his bass and starts. He gets ready to, warm up his fingers
Hmm.
because the saxophonist is, religiously going through his scales.
Yep.
And Michael, with his eyes closed, turns to Victor and says, no, Victor goes to Michael and goes, "Don't you need to warm up?" "Do you?" he replied, looking up at me. "Yes, I do." "How long you been playing?" he asked. "About 12 years or so." And Michael says, "And you're not warmed up yet?" "I want to be ready for tonight's gig," Victor says. "It's important to me." And then Michael says something that I think just kind of like shocked me because I never thought about it this way.
Hmm.
And I know exactly what he means by writing this. "I've been warming up my whole life for this gig," Michael explained with his eyes still closed. "It's an important one for me also. All the previous gigs were just rehearsals for tonight. It all leads to now."
Hmm.
And I sat there and I'm like, that is so true.
Hmm.
Every gig that you do is just a warm up for the next gig.
Yep.
It could potentially be your last gig, fine.
Hmm.
But it's so true. Like everything we've done before has been a warm up.
Hmm.
Because anything you learn in that moment, whether it's the actual song, whether it's how to deal with the situation, whether it's getting past the mistake, whatever the case may be, is a warm up for the next thing that you do.
Yep.
And I'm like, that's such a good life lesson.
Hmm.
It really is. It's such a good life lesson.
Yep.
That stood out to me. I have one other thing lined up after that, but I don't know what you have to add.
Yeah, I was gonna say so. There's an interaction with the saxophone player as well,
Those
and
saxophonists, those
I know they're
that's
awful. Can't stand
horrible.
them.
Go ahead. There's
And the saxophonist says to Michael, I don't want you warming up on my time while we're playing the gig. And Michael says, "You're warming up with your fingers because that's all you use when you play. I can already hear it. Me, I use my mind. We can compare notes after the gig if you want. You let me know. I'll be right here."
and it's yeah. You have how long of a drive to go to work?
About 30 minutes.
Okay, so I have about 35 to 45, depending on traffic, because I live on Long Island and traffic can make your 15-minute commute 3 hours.
Yep.
In the car, are you mentally preparing yourself for the day?
Yes.
So that 30 minutes you're spending mentally preparing yourself.
Hmm.
You're not thinking about the work that you need to do,
Hmm.
but you're mentally preparing of how you're going to deal with the day.
Yep.
Your interactions that may occur and all that stuff.
Hmm. Yep.
That's what I read. When I read that, that's exactly what I thought.
Yep.
Because right now, I don't. have gigs. I mean, and when we do this, we don't really sit and practice or everything. We
No.
we we say, hey, this is what we're going to do because we want it to be natural. We want it to be
Right.
conversational. And we say, hey, we're going to go through this chapter. Is there anything you want to add tonight? No. Okay, cool. But then if there's something is, then we add it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same thing with our live shows. We have a plan of attack, but we also know that the live shows that we do can change within 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Someone may bring something up and it may change the direction of what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
We may play something that actually sparks something else. Like there's so
Right.
many different things that occur in that situation. But when it comes to work, like my paying job,
Mm-hmm.
in that 45 minutes, same thing. I'm mentally preparing myself.
Mm-hmm.
You know, sometimes I speak to a coworker on the phone on the way in, but in most cases, I'm sitting there. I'm either listening to an audiobook and I'm focusing on one thing, so I'm not
Mm-hmm.
all over the place.
Yep.
But like when I read that, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's what I do when I go to work.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Oh, I just folded my page and now it's creased and my OCD is bothering me.
Just give it away and buy another one.
Oh, I will. So, no, all my marks are in this one. I can't do that. I did send someone a book this week.
Nice.
One of our listeners that their daughter is graduating and they're choosing a school.
Oh, you mentioned that in the live stream. Yeah.
Yeah, I sent it over to them, so I'm hoping they enjoy it.
Nice.
Where are we? So we talked about him and the interaction with the saxophonist,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then they move on, and he talks about this. So there's a whole situation with Michael playing and getting the attention of someone who's listening to the band. Because one of the things Victor says is he hates the fact, or he dislikes the fact that when you're playing, people are not listening. They're drinking, they're eating, they're just not paying attention to the band in any way, shape, or form. And Michael kind of pokes him and says, "Watch that guy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna make this happen." Right? And you just watch him. And at first, the guy's not listening. Then all of a sudden, Michael does something, and the guy turns around. And then he does it again, and the guy ends up getting up, grabbing the drink, and walks over in front of Michael. Michael sits down.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then Michael, you know, afterwards tells Victor that, "Oh yeah, that was all me."
Yep.
He's like, "I didn't play loudly, I played softly," but he knew he heard something and he wanted to
Mm-hmm.
come over.
Yep.
And I lowered my dynamics, but I played with more intensity. And he talks about that, and
Mm-hmm.
and it's so brilliant too.
Yeah.
Which then
And
leads into go ahead.
obviously that comes back in the second book. You know, that's a big part of the second book is
Yeah.
calling people with music.
Right. The second book is intense,
Yeah, it is.
like in a good way, but it's intense.
Mm-hmm.
And I've listened to I think I'm on like measure 5 or 6. This is the second time I've done it because I started and I'm like, you know, I'm gonna restart it, and I'm like, oh my goodness, this is intense.
Mm-hmm.
And Michael just states he used dynamics.
Yep.
Right. So I don't know if you want to read. We want to read any lines. I underlined stuff for myself, but
Yeah.
one of the things that he stated, he goes, the guy had no idea what attracted him to the stage. If he knew anything about our world of music, he would have noticed that what I did and would have paid direct attention to me.
Mm-hmm.
And skipping a little forward, and he goes, we are only dealing with music in this situation because the ability to use dynamics can be powerful. It can be used for both positive and negative reasons. And Victor says he doesn't understand that. And, you know, he talks about how music is a powerful tool. Like, it can be used for many reasons.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't know if you have any more after that.
I have nothing until after they make the saxophonist look good.
Right. Okay. So Victor talks about how he wants to do something like that. So Michael gives him a way of the saxophonist. They know the saxophonist is going to go solo. So Michael tells him how he can make the saxophonist stand out
Mm-hmm.
and what he can do to create a pocket
Mm-hmm.
that allows.
Well, really, what he did was he told Victor how to make the audience applaud. How to
Right.
essentially musically tell
Right.
them to applaud is what he
Right.
did.
Exactly. Yes.
And
Yes.
what they did musically was they created a hole for the saxophonist to
Right.
play in.
Right.
Um, so, and at the end of that, um, he says to Victor, "You can take no credit for it on the inside, but on the outside, the credit goes to the soloist. In other words, you keep quiet about what you've done. This quiet world is the world you live in as a bass player." And there's a lot of beautiful parts to that. First off, the interaction that they had with the saxophone player before then, it was a it was not a great interaction,
Right.
but at the same time, Michael made an attempt to make him stand out.
Right.
You know,
And which is amazing.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then the other part of it is, you think about doing something for other people, and what a world we would live in if we lived like that, like trying to do stuff for other people. And we played Victor Wooten's um commencement speech, was it 2 weeks ago? And in
Yes.
that I've mentioned it before, he says, it's okay to be selfish as long as you take others into account. And that's kind of the same way, like he and Michael created that applause, but he did it with the saxophonist in mind. So he was,
Right.
while he was being selfish, creating that applause for himself in a sense to prove that he could do it, but he did it so the other person could benefit as well.
Right. And to someone who gave them negative energy prior to starting,
Right, right.
which is such a like it's indirectly saying, yes, you're going to get negative energy. It's how you deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
It's how you put out there. And it's one of the things I say about when I'm working. We have some negative energy in there, and I speak to a couple of my colleagues, and I'm like, just kill them with kindness.
Mm-hmm.
Because you know what? At the end of the day, at least I know that I said and was nice to them the whole entire time, and I leave feeling better. I may not be happy with the situation. I may not like the negativity, but I can't let it depict my day. I
Mm-hmm.
have every right to walk away and take a moment and breathe and deal
Yeah.
with it on a personal level, but I'm not going to let that change how I treat them.
Mm.
I could. I just make every interaction the worst interaction ever and ruin my day and ruin everybody else's day, but it's not worth it.
Right. Yeah.
It's not worth it. Um, so that goes on, talks about that, and there's one part where he goes, where is it? Okay, so he felt that he owed it to, owed it all to Michael. Like it was because of Michael, and Michael goes, 20 years from now, he said, this knowledge will be looked upon as your own. Therefore, it should be looked upon as your own now. Like right
Mm-hmm.
now, it should be looked upon as your own. I thought that's a very cool thing to say, to think
Mm-hmm.
about. Like, yeah, we may have talked about it. I may have given you an idea, but you made it happen. So this is your own
Right.
thing.
Yep.
You know? Right. So this brings us towards the end of the chapter.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have anything else.
I get nothing else in the chapter. That was it.
Okay. The only thing I have is on the last page of the chapter. What does it say? Oh, they were talking about money because Michael got paid, but Michael left before he took the money. So Victor took it to give to him.
Mm-hmm.
And Michael was outside the car, and Michael purposely left because he wanted Victor to take the money.
Yep.
And this I thought was very interesting. Like Victor's like, I can't take the money, and Michael goes, listen, at this point in my journey, music is life.
Mm-hmm.
Music is capitalized, life is capitalized.
Yep.
And I do not need money to play it or live it. Money is not something I play for anymore. It used to be at one time, but now I play for other reasons. Tonight I played for you.
Mm-hmm.
And that way, and the way you played, you already paid me well. Like that, I thought was awesome.
Yeah.
Like I would love to be at that point. No, I'm playing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need the money. This is just,
Mm-hmm.
I'm good.
Yep.
Unfortunately, I need the money right now. You know, yeah, it was good. It was. This was a long but good chapter.
Yeah.
And I thought about it at the end. It's a dynamic chapter.
It is a dynamic chapter.
If you think about it,
Mm.
it starts off very kind of subtle, and at the end, it's intense.
Mm.
with everything that's going on.
Yeah.
So the dynamic of this chapter changes moving forward. And it almost changes the chapters going forward,
Yeah.
right? Which
And
the next chapter does introduce Sam.
yes, yes, it does. You know what? I reread this today, and there was one thing that did stick out, and I
Yeah.
didn't talk about it. I skipped over it. Um, look if I can find it. Hang on. I'll just paraphrase it because I kind of know what it says.
I was going to say, you don't know by heart.
You know, it's one of the things that I've talked about. You know, and I didn't think of dynamics this way, and obviously I did because I highlighted it. But you know, so where is it? So anyway, I'll just talk about it. So,
Sure.
um, you know, I talked, you know, about the elements of music, and that there are some elements that interact with others, and there are others that kind of stand alone. I never really thought about how dynamics affect all the other elements.
Right.
So there's a part where he says something like you can have like, you know, dynamics is more like could be intensity of, you
Right.
know, phrasing, or intensity of rhythm, or intensity of. I never thought of it that way. I mean, obviously I did because I highlighted it, but that part never stuck into my head until this reading. You know, and it's one of the things I like about this book is the more I read it, the more I find stuff to go, oh, I need to keep that in my mind now too. You know,
Right.
I keep
Right.
pulling one little thing here and there every time I read it. So
Right. And it's true. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I'm just trying to see if I can skim through and find it, but I
yeah.
know exactly the part you're talking about. It's true though.
hmm
You know, it's very true. And it's amazing how much they talk about, like, the way he approaches the way he wrote the second book is actually very interesting, because you
hmm
at first think it's just going to be a repeat of this book,
Right.
but it's not.
No, it's
It's a
not.
completely different.
hmm
There's a lot of similarities, but there's reasons for the similarities,
Right.
and it's a very well put together book.
hmm
Both of them are, but
Yeah.
very cool.
Yep.
I look forward to talking about Sam
Mm.
in the correct chapter.
Yeah. And I've got a video of Sam.
Do you really?
I do.
Is Sam a kid, or is it?
Yes. Well, when he played with the Wooten brothers, he was a kid.
Okay, so now he's
He
older, I'm
was.
sure.
Yeah. Now he's older. I've got a video of him when he was like 12 or 13, playing with Reggie and Joseph and Roy. I think it
Okay,
was Roy playing the drums, but
interesting.
yeah.
Interesting. I have to look more into this because you said all these characters are real people,
hmm
and when you read the book, you can't tell if they're real or not.
Right.
Like it doesn't lend to that.
hmm
But the way he talks about them, they feel very real.
Yep.
It's just the way he shares the story. They they seem like one person,
Right.
which lends to music, and music
hmm
being one entity.
Yep.
So it's making me think in ways I did not expect to think. I have nothing more to share about this chapter.
I have dog hair in my glasses. It's itching my nose. It's driving me nuts.
And you saw both of us like turn away from the mic multiple times because if you're watching it, because of the fact that we're both like coughing or doing whatever, and we don't want to get it on the mic.
Yeah.
So, remember, just every week these episodes are coming out.
hmm
Next week will be the episode. Next will be Measure 7, which, as we said, introduces Sam. Every Friday night, Kyle goes live. And shares. Sometimes he shares a full album. Most of the time, he shares a full album,
hmm
or he finds new artists and he shares new artists, like new artists to him, someone that he may
Right.
have not heard before. Every Sunday, that's at 8 o'clock on Fridays. Every Sunday at 7:30, we both go live. Typically, right now we're playing Victor Wooten's albums, but one weekend we did
Harry
in memory
Belafonte.
of Harry Belafonte, and the past weekend we played, as we mentioned earlier, music from Gordon Lightfoot.
Mhm.
So for us, it's important to share that out because a lot of these older musicians that we know are at that age, and it's like that one year that David Bowie passed, and we lost like 5 million musicians that were
Mhm.
shouldn't have gone.
Yep.
Um, so please join us on those live shows. They're on Twitch. Kyle puts everything in the show notes. Thank you, Kyle. And we do have YouTube. So you have listened to this episode, and I'm sure you listened to the other ones. If you want to see us in person, starting with episode 4, we are in person. The episodes 1, 2, and 3 of this season are static pictures just because it was something that came about later on. So if you want to see what we look like and the funny things we do on camera, please watch. We have shorts that are going up there, not like
Mhm.
apparel, like actual video shorts.
Mhm.
Salute your shorts. And then and look out for some meditation stuff. I think that's something Kyle and I are going to talk about.
Mhm.
We have something coming up where we're going to try to do an episode that's kind of guided by part listener participation, and Kyle and I still have to talk about that a little bit. So you know, follow our socials from the links in the show notes so you can learn more about that. And now, what? Just read the closing notes.
Yeah,
All right,
that
you could
works.
do that. What? Huh? Do I read it? I read it.
No, I'm doing it this week again.
Oh, nice. Good.
Yeah,
Good.
you got one more week off after this.
Huh?
You got one more week after this
Okay.
off, and then you're back on.
Oh wow.
So,
Yeah. How's
all
the
right,
harmonica playing going?
good.
Yes, that is Kyle on harmonica at the beginning and the end of the episodes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, that's all I have to say about that.
Do I have it here? I do have it. I got one right
Because our
here.
previous season we had no intro,
No, we didn't.
so now we have a little harmonica playing by
Mm-hmm.
Kyle. Kyle harmonica, harmonica Kyle.
Mm-hmm.
We have to find a nickname for you. Kamaraka. No, that doesn't work.
Why don't we just say goodbye and leave it at that?
Thank you, everyone, for listening to
Yep.
this episode, Measure 6 of the music lesson by Victor Wooten. We hope you join us next week for Measure 7.
Yep. We'll see you next time. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.